I am so grateful to be here this morning. And I'm just looking around the gallery and thinking how wonderful it is that we're able to connect in this way. Before 2019 and before, when we said, are you out there? Hey, Grandma, are you out there? Can you hear us? It was because we were at a seance. But now it's because we're on a Zoom meeting. So I'm so glad you're out there, and I'm so grateful that you can hear me and that we can see each other. What a joy it is. So this monthly theme, we are open to possibilities. And today's talk is with open arms. So every month we have a new theme. And this month we're open to the highest idea of our lives through the spiritual practice of visioning. Now, I know you've heard us talk about visioning before, and this is a renewal and a regeneration because we are opening up, and we're opening up in so many ways. We're opening spiritually, yes, and our country is opening up, and we are returning to what we are able to get out and see people. And so what a better time to have that visioning that allows us to tap into that realm of possibilities that is greater than even we can imagine. And we are an imaginative people, are we not? Back in 1932, a fellow named Charles Darrow was out of a job and broke. His wife was expecting a baby, and though he was a heating engineer, there were no jobs available, and Darrow and his wife were just barely subsisting on the few odd jobs he could get. And things were bleak. We know how that is, right? But fate didn't reckon with the courage of this man and his wife. They laughed at it, literally. And in the evenings, to take their minds off their troubles, they made up a little game in which they pretended they were millionaires. Act as if, we're told. So, recalling the pleasant vacations in nearby Atlantic City, they reconstructed the area adjoining the boardwalk. And Darrow carved hotels and houses out of small pieces of wood. They called it Monopoly. Such creative minds. So this year, the CSL theme reflects our evolutionary vision and our timeless wisdom. So if we look at the global vision statement, we see a world in which every person lives in alignment with their highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively, we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. And is that not certainly true for us right now? And also, from the timeless wisdom, we hear this. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and that anyone may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. Now, direct revelation is the practice of the principles of spiritual beings, freedom, joy. As individualized expressions of the one infinite reality, we have access to the infinite wisdom, the infinite intelligence of that intimate, ultimate reality. And it flows to us and as us to the degree that we set aside our previous ideas and become aware of that conscious impress. So direct revelation is available to us through our intuition, and we can intentionally cultivate it through visioning. See, we know this. We know that there's only one power and presence, one source of back of all things. Remember, everything we need to know, we know it's already in the mind of God within us. And so knowing that there's only one life, this life is who I am. Therefore, I have the ability to allow this wisdom to express through me by living in the question. And so the question we ask in visioning is, what is Spirit's highest vision of itself as me? And so when we live from this curiosity and remain open and willing to receive that highest vision, this allows us to live and act from a place of divine guidance. And then we create this heaven on earth. Heaven on earth. Visions of sugar plums. Oh, we love pictures, don't we? Oh, think of TV or movies. Moving pictures came to the big cities first and finally arrived in a remote mining camp in the Rockies. And so the picture was announced and the tent was put up. You can imagine the residents had never been to a movie before. And the tent was packed with cowboys and miners. And at one moment during the show of this blood-curdling melodrama, the villain began to choke the heroine. We've seen this, right? Tied to the tracks. A cowboy in the front row pulled out his gun and fired shots into the villain, into the screen. And so they laughed because in those days, a gunshot didn't mean much. And there were only a few bullet holes in the screen. And of course, the picture went on as scheduled. That didn't stop the picture. And why do we laugh at the cowboy? If you laughed, what should he have done? Because we know that what's on the screen, what is out picturing, what is the appearance is not necessarily truth. And it's coming from someplace else. It's coming from a cause way back. So we know everything is created twice, first in mind and then in our world. And so I have to ask myself occasionally, am I shooting at the screen or am I doing something to change, to be transformed? So visioning is that spiritual practice which allows us to transcend our limited habitual thinking, shooting at the screen, and align with the infinite possibility for our lives. Wow, what a possibility. And I don't know about you, but I am ready to create this new vision, to allow that to flow through me and to get out of my isolation, out of this space that I have been in, both physically and mentally, and into something greater. And so I am open and willing to be guided by this vision, to become a place of deep listening, to hear, to see, to feel, and just catch Spirit's idea for my life. And I hope you join me in that. But we have to first make a distinction between visualization and visioning, because you can visualize that which you know, or that's which you can conceive. And visioning is a receptive state to catch a vision for your life outside of your current awareness and understanding. So living in this question, as Rainbow talked about 2 weeks ago, living in the question, invites us to a different place, invites us to a greater place that is seeking to express in us and through us. We know that Spirit expresses in us and through us as that love and joy and light, that compassion and understanding. And are you asking the universe for what you want? Or are you open to receive the fullness of life that you are? Are you willing to allow not only yourself to use that power and presence, but to allow it to use you, to set free and let loose within you those infinite possibilities? Helen Keller tells us the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. So what's it all for? This collective evolution, moving beyond our conditioned scarcity, fear, separation. This allows us to tap into the cosmic consciousness, to catch Spirit's vision for our lives. In its most simple form of definition, your vision is what you want to accomplish with your life. Your vision is what you see when you imagine your most meaningful future. Many of us would recognize Martin Luther King as a man with a vision that quite literally changed the future of an entire nation. So we need to ask the question, and we need to be open to receiving the answer. Physicist and spiritual teacher Peter Russell is reported to have a recording on his answering machine that said something like this. It said, "This is not an answering machine. It's a questioning machine. Who are you and what do you want?" And after a brief pause, it continued, "In case you think these are trivial questions, most people come to Earth and leave it again without answering either one. Who are you and what do you want?" See, questions open us up to something new. Inviting that curiosity, a way of being, is how we live in the question. The question, what is Spirit's highest idea of my life? And it breaks us away from what we think we know and invites us to that greater thing. So here's a question. Are you willing to be surprised by what you discover about yourself? Are you willing and open to learning and growth? Are you willing to be more interested in your spiritual growth and advocating for your limitations? Yeah, sometimes I advocate for my limitations. Well, I can't possibly do that because, or it's never worked before, so I don't think it'll work now. Or I can't possibly go out because, COVID. So we learn through curiosity. So we remain open to experience of a shift in perspective, a new awareness, a heightened experience of life. And so are you willing? Because our lives are transformed and expanded when we live in and from the question. So let's just try that now. Let's just take a moment, if you're willing, to ask ourselves that question. Oh gosh. So let's just take a deep breath and just breathe together and letting it go. And then I'm going to ask the question and then have a few moments of silence. So here's the question: what is Spirit's highest idea of itself as my life? And just think on this, be open and receptive, whatever comes to you in whatever form, maybe a sound, maybe a picture, a feeling, a color. Just allow that to come into your consciousness. What is Spirit's highest idea of itself as my life? And just allow that to come to you. And if it didn't come in this moment, it'll show up later on. And I invite you to continue to ask this question. See, where your attention goes, energy flows, and the manifestation follows. So we don't necessarily have to work to create and to manifest that vision. It already is. We just release and let go of the obstacles we've placed in the way. And so the next part then is, after knowing that vision, is we release that which doesn't serve the highest idea. And we embrace new ways of being and just allow those to unfold. Michael Beckwith tells us, where there is a willingness, there is a way. Where there is a willfulness, there is a wall. Where there is a willingness, there is a way. Where there is a willfulness, there is a wall. So the second step, envisioning, after asking the question, we have to release. Releasing is about making room for a greater good, for healing. So releasing is not based on what we choose to release, or, oh gosh, I want to release this thing, but it's, what does Spirit say that we need to release? And that's what happens in the visioning. We receive the impress of Spirit as to what might be standing in the way. So you can imagine, I've been out in the garden lately, it's spring here in Texas, and Imagine a garden hose that's attached to a water spigot. So the spigot is like the source when the water's turned on and flowing. And then how much water comes out of the end of the hose, it depends on whether or not the hose is obstructed, how big the circumference of the hose is. Um, and so if the water is flowing from the source and yet the other end of the hose, the water's dribbling out, I know that there's something wrong. There's an obstruction. Something is blocking the way. And so my job then is to unkink the hose if that's a problem, to release that. So our spiritual work is to remove the obstructions in that flow, to allow it to flow, to allow it. So spirit is always present. The water is always flowing. The degree to which we experience that flow is the degree in which we're able to be channels for that water to flow through. So our work is in unkinking the hose. So we don't need to do anything about the flow. It's always there. We need to allow it to flow. And as we do, as we let go, and the water starts to flow, spirit starts to flow in our lives, then we have to embrace it. So as we begin to see and describe the vision of what needs to be released, we find that we catch insights which will manifest in our life. So when you don't know what is stopping you, if you feel like you're blocked in some way, here's the question: what must I release for this vision to manifest? What must I release for this vision to manifest? So releasing and embracing are where our work lies when it comes to manifesting the vision. And so this leads us to the next question. What beliefs and ideas and actions must we embrace, embody, and become to live in alignment with the vision? Because embracing these things brings us into the realization of the vision. So embracing, we haven't been able to embrace people for a long time now, but embracing or something or someone is an act of receptivity and a level of enthusiasm. So we cannot experience what we're unwilling to receive. In asking, what must I embrace, which is part of the visioning process, we're asking, what must I be receptive to that will bring me into greater alignment with the vision? What possibilities am I open to? What opportunities for growth do I welcome? Maybe there's been something knocking at your door, and maybe you said, no, I can't possibly do that. And maybe it's time to embrace that. What changes do I want to wrap my arms around, to hold and nurture? And what serves me to transform? So we embrace, we embody. Embodying an idea is a demonstration of consciousness. To embody something is to go beyond that knowledge of knowing something and go to a heartfelt understanding. We can know about something or we can know it intimately. It's that knowing that we know that we know. So embodiment implies that something has taken form. It's demonstrated. And when we ask envisioning, what must I embody? We're asking, what must I know so deeply that it becomes casual? It's just something I know. It takes form as me. And then we become. We become that. Become is allowing that which you already are to come forth. It was Peter remembering the truth of who he was that allowed him to come to Jesus on the water. And when we ask envisioning, what must I become? We're asking, what divine qualities within me am I being called to remember? And being the truth, then we come into the vision because we're in total alignment with it. The vision pulls us to it. And remember the reading from Emma Curtis Hopkins: you will always be thirsty for something until you let your highest idea reign over you. You will always be thirsty for something until you let your highest idea reign over you. This was written over 200 years ago, and it is so true. It is so true for us. So that is why we vision. We use this creative process because there is something that is desiring to manifest itself through us. We participate in visioning to go beyond our personal desires and tap into the infiniteness of spirit. We open to that highest idea. We align our consciousness with our divine purpose. And because the vision is already complete in the mind of God, our work is to become a more effective delivery system, to unkink that hose, to release, to let go, to embrace, to embody, to become. This is where the personal transformation comes in. In order for the highest idea of our life to unfold, we must become willing to transform our consciousness and have it transform us. A lot of things have changed over the last year. Are you willing to commit to being different? Things are going to change whether you commit yourself to transformation or not. And so you might as well be conscious about it. So I'm going to commit to my spiritual growth and transformation in order that that greater vision can unfold as me. Because otherwise, I'm still going to be thirsty. I'm still going to be hungry. I'm still going to be desiring to fill that hole in my life. Do you know what you call a successful vision? An optimal illusion. I want that optimal illusion. The vision is already complete in the universal mind, and everything that's necessary to fulfill it is inherent within the vision itself. So our opportunity is to be a willing and able vehicle for that vision. So ask the higher question. Live in the state of curiosity. Remain open to the possibility. We don't need to make something happen. We rest in the awareness that the vision is being revealed and is already complete. So our job is to be willing to do the spiritual work of releasing, embracing, becoming. Then we become instruments of the divine. We fulfill our purpose. And the possibilities for your life are infinite. It starts with an embrace. And so the question, what will you welcome with open arms today? What will you welcome with open arms today? And so let's take this thought into our prayer treatment today. Just being in that place that is no place, that is every place. Knowing one power, one presence, one infinite source, knowing that there is a power for good in the universe and that we can use it and we allow it to use us. So recognize the divine, knowing our oneness with it. I now speak my word. I speak my word for the vision of spirit that is already being manifested across the planet, across the globe. And I open myself to be a receptive instrument of that. I release and let go of anything that is standing in the way of that divine flow in my life as an individual and as a collective. And so I get out of the way. I allow that spirit, that infinite source to flow through me, to be what it most desires to be that creative energy, that life force, to be health in our lives, knowing that this health expands to each and every person, each and every cell knows it's what to do and how to do it. It is that divine intelligence flowing in us. I know that divine spirit expands as perfect work in the world, that we are creative beings and that we manifest that opportunity for ourselves to contribute. And I know that that spirit manifests itself as abundance. I see it in the blooming of the trees that is just happening right now. The rejuvenation, the regeneration of leaves that had been dormant all winter. And so I see this abundance. So knowing that abundance, knowing that creative energy, knowing that health, I also speak my word today for love, just for love on the planet, for forgiveness, for compassion, for loving, for acceptance. Knowing this is what spirit is love in action. And so I invite you to join me in this, in gratitude for what is and in gratitude for what is not. I just let it be. I release this word into that law that has already said yes. And I invite you to affirm it with me by saying together, and so it is.